Welcome to Meet the Moment podcast, produced by the Real Estate Business Institute. This podcast is an exploration of what today's industry leaders and agents need to know to be profitable, productive, and have fun. I'm Matthew Rathman, and I'm joined by co-host Kimberly Allard as we chat with thought leaders, brokers, and agents who can help agents meet the moment of change in the real estate industry. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our next episode of Meet the Moment podcast. My name is Matthew Rathman. As always, I am joined by the awesome co-pilot of our ship here, Kimberly. Kimberly, how are you doing today?
I'm captaining the ship. I'm good.
Oh, you're the captain today.
Did I get a promotion? I mean, yeah. Usually it's 10 minutes before you introduce me, so thank you. And here we go.
You could just jump right in there anytime. I never knew you to be one who stood in formality, so no. I didn't think you needed to wait to be introduced. So anyways, look, we are joined today by someone who is genuinely really funny. Matter of fact, I messaged her and said we wanted somebody really funny here because we're going to be talking about dumb things real estate agents do. And we're joined today with Trista Curzydlo, which I think I pronounced that right. I've always just called you Trista.
You did. I am so impressed. That was awesome.
I feel like during Witness relocation, they just threw a bunch of names from a Scrabble bag on the counter and go, this is her new last name.
It's all the consonants. Like, just here you go.
Right. I think it's a little bit of a sobriety test. I mean, we're recording this in the morning, but had it been after 1 o'clock martini time, that might have been a little bit more difficult for you, Matthew.
Writing it is hard, like in cursive, because you've got the Z followed by the Y, and those are like hard. And so my daughter, when she got her very first driver's license, I'm watching her sign it, and I realized for the first time she leaves out the Y.
Oh.
Just doesn't add it, like never has. When she signs it in cursive, like that's just too much effort.
What do people call you? Like, what versions of your last name have you heard of?
Oh, my absolute all-time favorite. I was speaking in a southern state, and the president of the association, most adorable man ever, was talking like at the opening event, saying this is who's here and this is who you should go and see. And he said Curzydlo at least 5 times. And every time he would say it, somebody who was there, who was like my friend, would be texting me. And I'm like, I can't handle this. Like, this is good. I mean, he had no idea. He was so proud of himself for having practiced saying it. So it was the same every time he said it. And nobody's going to correct him because he's like, he's wearing his seersucker suit and his pink bow tie. And he's the cutest man ever. And I could not breathe. And then for a different convention, I'm checking into the hotel and I had not made my reservation. And the person at the front desk is like, we do not have you. I'm like, wait, I have the number. I have the confirmation number. And she's like, oh, yeah, you're here, but that's not your name. And I'm like, no, I legit know what my name is. And it was Trista Curzydlo. It was, and I'm just like, what are you? But it was the reservations had been made over the phone. That one just made me Trista Curzydlo. That was it.
You should have said, when I dance at night, I go by the name of Trixie Star, but my law degree does not say that.
I laughed so hard, and I posted it on social media, and there were multiple people who were like, that is your dancer name. That is now your dancer name. That is how you will always be known. And I was like, that one's amazing. Just the last name being off, but the first name, that was amazing.
This sometimes in our business, the material writes itself.
It does. And I was just like, I just want a place to sleep. You can call me whatever you want. It's fine.
Well, for the record, Matthew got it right. I'm not even going to try, even though I did read, how to pronounce it, but now I cannot unsee Curzydlo. So
you'll never be able to. That
no,
will
I cannot
always be in your mind.
All right. So now I have to share with you my horrible story. Allard is my last name. I was running for a local town position, and I made a Facebook page, and you got the banner behind you, and I just used an image of my yard sign, my political yard sign. It said Allard Planning Board, whatever it said. Well, thankfully, it looked wonderful on a desktop, and then I looked at it on the mobile version, and the A was here, and the rest of my name was here, so it looked like Allard. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, we do not, that's not gonna work. So, but yeah, there's some unfortunate versions.
Yeah. And you know what? This is how big of a nerd I am. The minute you said it looked good on my desktop and then bad on my phone, I immediately go to like ADA compliance stuff. That is how big of a nerd I am. That's where my mind went.
Well, we are going to get to all of that stuff because we have a lot to go over, especially with you. So, but we want you to tell our listeners that if there's anybody out there that doesn't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So this is where I always feel like there are two me's. Like there's the professional, like what makes me able to say the things I say. And then the other side, which is like the who I am side. I'll start with professional. So I've been an attorney. I just hit the point last year where I've been an attorney in my life longer than I have not been an attorney. So I've hit the halfway point. Whew, that's how old I am. So I'm a graduate of Washburn University, Washburn School of Law, where I was a member of the Washburn Law Journal. And there are 5 people listening who know what that means. And then I did all the same like clerkships, internships that most folks do at big firms. Knew pretty quickly I'm not a big firm person. So an opportunity opened up for me to join the governor's office. So I peaked very early, straight out of law school, legal counsel to our governor. I spent an amazing time there. It was so great because I got to do policy stuff. I got to do all the, research and guidance and advising on, good stuff, and was a special assistant attorney general assigned to kind of the relationships that exist between tribal nations and your state government, which was, like one of the most fascinating things a person can do. And then at the end of his term, because term limited here in Kansas, I became a contract lobbyist. And so I represented like the Kansas Bar Association and some other groups like that. And then my husband decided we should live in the same town because we had not prior to that. So I lost a great game of Scrabble, which meant I needed to move to Wichita, Kansas to be with him. And then I joined the district attorney's office where I prosecuted, and then an opening came available in the Wichita Association of Realtors to be their legal counsel and their government affairs director. And I was like, that's awesome because I've got, my trial experience, I've got my policy stuff. But I had reached a point in the DA's office where somebody handed me a file that was not for my case. It was for one of my husband's, and he prosecuted big, super scary people. And I went in and I'm like, oh my gosh, like when these people threaten to kill you, they like mean it. They're legit. And I was like, no, this is not for me. I'll just let my husband be the one that gets taken out. So then
you're kind that way.
I know, right? Because his insurance is way better. Like the payout's so much better. So then I joined the Realtors Association, and I was their legal counsel for about six years, I think, maybe a little bit more than 6 years, and started teaching some classes for them. And then our education director there at the time, Karen Becker, who's like the most amazing human being, was like, Trista, you could actually get paid to talk if you wanted to do that. And so she kind of helped me launch my speaking side. And so for the last 16 years, I've had what I call my clients for life who are, like in practice. And then but primarily I just travel and teach. That's professional. That was really long. Was that what you wanted? Or did you want to know like my hobbies?
Well, that was really boring.
It was, wasn't it? Like my background is like, you're like, wow, you're a super nerd. But like I gravel ride, I do triathlons, I'm an ultra marathoner.
What is, well, first of all, now that our listeners have stopped at 2x speed, What is what is gravel ride?
Oh my gosh. Gravel riding is so fun. It is so fun. So you it's bicycling on a gravel bike. It's wider wheels and it's designed to ride on gravel roads. So it's dangerous. Like you can really get messed up, which is what makes it super fun. The biggest race, or I guess it's the second largest race in the world in gravel, is in Emporia, Kansas, which is just so weird because I'm from Kansas and my brother actually lives in Emporia, and it's called the Garmin Unbound. It started as the Dirty Kansas. It's 6,000 people from all over the world. People fly in with their bikes from other countries and you ride 350, 200, 100, or 50 miles on gravel. It is so fun.
No. You lost me at outside exercise. I think you're gonna have to talk to Matthew about this. He loves that outdoor stuff, dirt, survival.
I gotta say, I rode a motorcycle for a long time, and I just assumed that gravel riding is when you drop your bike at full speed.
Google it. Oh my gosh, watch the videos from the race last weekend, because we had a week of rain leading up to it. So you're riding through washed out roads where your feet are covered in water. At the end, when you're watching the people who won, they're covered in mud. The only thing that's not is when you take your sunglasses off, and that's you have that white stripe. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. It's so fun. And my parents laugh because I do not like being dirty or uncomfortable or sweaty.
It's all those things.
And the people are so cool because it doesn't matter where you are, in the pack. If you're back of the pack, front of the pack, whatever, somebody's going to ride up next to you and they're going to be like, I thought Kansas was flat. And I'm like, no, there are parts of Kansas that are very flat, but you're riding through the Flint Hills on limestone gravel roads. It is the best way to see Kansas. It's so fun.
And this podcast has been brought to you by Dirt. I can see why you would align yourself with that sport, because it's dangerous, it's messy, it's dirty, and it's similar to being an attorney or a real estate agent, right? So there are days we feel like we're covered in mud or competing against those that are covered in mud.
The goal is to survive. That's literally what it is.
Doesn't that sound like that's just everyday life now? As I'm listening to you talk, I'm going, I feel like I get out of bed in the morning and I'm just taking off goggles and there's just this white stripe. And anyways, I am intrigued, having been a very frustrated wannabe attorney, but now that I have Claude, I'm good. I didn't need to go to law school. I can do everything.
Right. Don't say those things to me.
No,
don't.
Well, there are some people that actually think that Matthew was not kidding, but of course we're kidding. But.
No, I am a very frustrated attorney. I love the law part of what we do. Matter of fact, it's probably one of my favorite things, and that's why I sit on all the forms committee and professional standards. I do the expert witness, or we do. Kimberly and I both do all those things. And the expert witness work, because I was, frustrated. I wanted to do what you do. But if I had been the ADA in Kansas, I would have made so many jokes about investigating Dorothy's homicide of the witch or something. I could not have let that go by. I would have been kicked out of law school just for the dad jokes. But
that's a fictional work, right?
Don't tell him that.
Dorothy does not exist.
Do not tell him that. Okay. He'll be so
Let me tell you what I did last night. I'm going to tell, because I told Kimberly.
Kansas is in color. We're good.
Your world's in color, maybe.
Oh, here we go. You opened up a can of worms.
I just watched Spider Noir, and I watched it in black and white. No, look, let me tell you what I did yesterday. You talk about being a nerd. I'm going to out nerd you. I'm watching a show called Vox Machina, which is a Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, and it's maybe relive my teenage years of playing Dungeons and Dragons role-playing games. Well, my daughters still play. Them and their husbands actually get together and play these games. So I polished off an old character And I found the book, and I'm like, hey, what if this character had aged with me? What would he look like at 50? So I put it in AI, and I make the character anew and that. And I'm like, well, now that I've got like these pictures, these are pretty cool looking. I found a site that will take a picture and with some small prompts, create a 3D model that I printed on my 3D printer last night. So I woke up this morning with this little miniature of me. Like, you don't want to go nerd to nerd with me. Like, I wasn't smart enough for nerd law review, but
did it make you happy? Like, do you look at that
yes.
and you're like, that makes me happy?
It brought back nostalgia. I'm very nostalgic. Yeah.
That is for me, like, what technology should be. Like, that's what we should, like, there's yes, it makes business so much easier and it can solve all these problems. But I think leaning into it did this and it made me happy, or it did this and it made me feel this way. I think we get too focused in on how can this make my life easier and how can it make my business work better. I had my birthday last week, and my husband, I'm to the point now where I have everything. Like, if it exists and I want it, I probably have it. But he spent about a year and a half online going through like eBay and Etsy and all those weird places to find someone who would sell him a Montgomery Moose from the Get Along Gang.
Remember that?
Character. Like, yes. Do you remember the Get Along Gang? Get Along,
songs going to my head.
Gang?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, I loved that. And Montgomery Moose was my man. But yeah, so I have Montgomery Moose. He sits in my office, and every time I look at him, I'm like, I remember like wanting to be, wanting to practice law, wanting to do these things. And it sparks a little bit of happiness in me. I love it. So take that, nerd. Yeah.
All right, listen.
Hold on. So
you two,
eat that.
You two are such geeks. Somehow I'm going to exclude myself from this, but no, I'm right there with you guys. I want to point out that, not only am I incredibly appreciative, but our listeners should be as well, because to have somebody with your background, skill, and education, sometimes it goes the other way, right? Sometimes you have people that have a profession, and then they decide they want to go to law school later in life, and then they become attorneys, and they move almost backwards from in the reverse of what you've done. But if we think about it, you have put in the hard work, you got the education, you had the incredible positions, and then now you are the educator trying to teach the rest of us with this. You have come from an incredible position. So I know I'm trying to use the word, you said you get paid to talk, but what made you decide that it was okay to make that transition from, district attorney's office and all these really high level positions and say, I'm going to teach a group of realtors, and this is my vision, and this is why it's important?
Two things. Okay. Money.
Yeah.
I gotta put that out there. I've got my mortgage to pay, and I've got all of that. But I had always taught continuing legal ed classes for my bar association. Like, I'd volunteered and did it. You get like a coffee mug full of like candies, like a thank you. I mean, I taught those classes for a variety of reasons. The main one being I didn't necessarily love the way the classes were being taught by others. Like, I didn't, I don't ever want to like insult an educator or the way that they approach it. But I kind of was bored. Like, I would be like, I'm not learning from you the way that works for my brain. I'm not, it wasn't hitting for me. And then when I joined the Realtor family, our education director was like, in your contract, you're required to teach. So you're going to teach. And I was like, okay, cool. There were certain classes that I was like, I will never teach these topics. Like, that's so outside of my comfort zone. Another educator once was like, you do the fruits and vegetables. And I was like, absolutely. I am your vegetable person. Your boring classes, you've got your boring topics. You've got to have this to keep your license. I'm that person. And then being with the association and sitting in on classes, I always felt like different people learn different ways. And if I can reach the people who learn the way I learn with stories, with kind of that humor part of it, then that's what I want to do. And then when I was pregnant with my youngest child, we moved. And so I had to, I was leaving the Realtors Association. My husband was transferring within his job. And I was like, I can't roll up to law firms pregnant and be like, what's up? Like, hey, I hear you need a senior counsel. I mean, like the law says they can't discriminate. Real world is going to say that's not going to happen. So at that point, with like supportive ed directors who were just like, you should just teach, Trista, you should just do it. And I was like, yeah, that would be awesome if I liked people, which I do not. So then I have an agent who does the people side of things. So I don't have to do that. I just show up. I talk about the stuff that I think is the most fascinating and the most interesting, that I think a lot of folks who practice real estate don't get, because real estate is such a people business. And I think it appeals to your people. And so breaking down that's awesome that you can do that. But the law says you may not. That was really the niche for me. I got this balance. I take the summers off so that I could full-time mom. I can take, my kids all their Christmas break, all their Thanksgiving break. I've never had to work during that time, because I make my own schedule and do my thing. Just that balance of what do I need professionally, and then what kind of, at the end of the day, what can I look at and say, that was something good? Like, that was fun. People walked away knowing something they didn't know before, or thinking about something they didn't think about before. So for me, it's like the perfect fit. I don't know if I'm awesome at it, but it works for me.
Well, if our listeners want to decide whether or not you're awesome at it, we think you are. You can be found at tristac.com. So that's TRISTAC, the letter C.com, right?
Most boring website on the internet. So
but
boring.
You do have some videos that are, they give a little bit of a view into your humor, and I think you hit the nail on the head. You have a great ability to tell a story and somehow wrap up what some of us or some folks in our industry feel like are just boring little legal details, but you tie it right in. And I would encourage folks to check those out, because like you said, you found out early on that there are a lot of people that may know what they're talking about, but to deliver that in a way that it lands with our practitioners in a way that they can actually put it into play and then be humorous about it, that's a skill. So congratulations on that.
That's so nice. I feel like I owe you money now. That's like the Federal Trade Commission #ad.
It's funny, because we wanted to get kind of some insight here about some of the dumb things you've seen agents do and how not to do that, or how to address it as a broker. This was sent to me, and I remember forwarding it to you. I don't know if you remember this. This was a bit ago. Somebody in the MLS had posted, and of course, sometimes you just think, like, who can I share this with? Someone in the MLS had posted this offer. We anticipate multiple offers. We want the highest and best of your offers due by date, stated, and time. The seller prefers owner-occupied buyers, ideally with a commitment to social justice. Please have your buyer submit an essay of no more than a few paragraphs on what social justice means to them, and we anticipate a quick closing.
The thing about that is that, like, you could read that to a group of 50 agents, and you're going to have 45 who are like, that's wrong. You are in writing saying, not, this is the great thing about my house. You are in writing saying, this is who should live in my house, which is fair housing #1. Let's not do that. And then you're going to have 5 people in the room who are like, oh, that makes total sense. They own that house. They should get to decide who lives there. They have relationships with their neighbors. They should get to decide, who lives next to their neighbors. They're watching out for them. And you're like, yeah, that's That's the breakdown. And you understand that's how that came to be. And those sellers, that was important to them. And it's tough because you'll have maybe a realtor who comes in and they're like listening to the seller and they're like, oh, well, I don't think that's a good idea. And the seller says, I'm not going to hire you unless you make this happen. And that agent is afraid to walk away. And that's like one of the big things that like we talk about in any class I've ever taught, which is you don't have to represent everyone. You have to look out for your license. That's your thing of value. You have to protect that. And, you know, you never want to jeopardize the license to make the client happy. That's just like not good. If you're in a position where you can say, I'm just not going to work with anybody I don't like, more power to you. You know, but you've got to say no to those folks who are going to lead you astray.
Oh, how about even just have the discussion in your own mind? I often stand in front of a group, sadly, and say things like, you cannot have these discussions between your own two ears. Because if I'm on my way out the door in the morning and I have not had the time to have a proper breakfast and there's a box of Oreos on the counter, I may say to myself, 8:30, I got to rush out the door. I think I'll grab 2 Oreos and that'll be my breakfast. If I said it out loud, I'm likely not to do it. If I picked up the phone and called one of my peers and said, hey, should I have 2 Oreos for breakfast? Knowing me, what would you say? They're probably going to have a discussion with you and you're going to have a better understanding of what you already knew anyways. But, you know, just all we're asking, and I think, you know, you just described that, is have the discussion. Think about something beyond what it seems to be. And that's, you know, I think we'd all be really happy if you just said to yourself, you know, and I've seen in some of your classes, which I love, you know, you're separating, is this an idiot move? Is this an illegal move? Or is this an unethical move?
Yeah.
And I'd be happy if people just had that conversation with themselves on a daily basis.
I love that Kimberly, I love that you're like, I would call somebody and they would tell me no, because who you call is so important. Because the minute you said that, I'm like, no, I would call one of my people and they would be like, what's wrong with Oreos for breakfast, Trista? That sounds amazing. You know, you have your coffee. Nothing is better with coffee than some chocolate. You've taken all your medication. You can't do that on an empty stomach. Have the Oreos. That's a great...
On my diabetic...
Have the great plan. You know, that makes total sense because those are my people, right? Like I found, and part of the problem is if you only surround yourself with the people who think the way you think, and who have the same experience that you've had, you're going to be told Oreos are a great breakfast, even if you're diabetic, which is not what you need to hear. You need to hear from the person who's going to say, in my experience, Oreos are not going to be what you need right now. You should probably pick a better choice. You have to have, you know, do you have a hard-boiled egg in your fridge? Do you have an apple, maybe a banana? You know, can you pick up a smoothie? You know, those folks, you need those folks, even if they make you uncomfortable. And I think that can always be the problem is you have, the people you need to hear from are the ones who make you uncomfortable. So... which is, I always try to avoid being the uncomfortable voice because, I mean, there are people in the speaking world who will, can I drop a name? Is that acceptable? Is that socially okay? Craig Grant will be like, the first time I met you, you scared me. Like, it was so awful. You were terrifying. And I'm like, I don't ever want to be the one who scares you. I think it's okay to make you uncomfortable. And I want you to think about things. And so you need that person, the voice in your head that's like, this is not the right choice for me. Yeah.
Well, that's why I talk to Kimberly every day, because no one makes me more uncomfortable than Kimberly. So.
It's not, it is true.
I also, Trista, just in that last 5-minute segment, I heard your mom voice so very clear. Like, do you want a banana or do you want things that aren't good for you?
Yeah.
So, we all have our stories or what ifs or I can't believe this is happening. And for Kimberly and I, we're brokers, so we're in this every day. Like the the other day when I'm in the middle of helping one of our agents with a transaction in which the house needed a very, very significant restructuring of the foundation, and the parties agreed to do it by a licensed contractor. The agent acknowledges this, says she's working on it, whatever, and then eventually comes back and hired somebody who isn't a contractor, did $40,000, whatever it was, worth of work. And when we said, no, it needed to be a licensed contractor, they have permits, it's a state law that it has to be a contractor to do this kind of work, on and on. She's like, we're in a rural market. And as you know, the law doesn't apply if there's scarcity. That was her response to it. So, and I was like, I need you. And I've learned, like, I never say you're wrong, because one of these days you're going to say you're wrong. And maybe there is some premise for that. I can't imagine. But I said, I haven't heard that before. Can you please send me something to justify it? And I kid you not, she sent over something from from ChatGPT. And at the bottom, you know how it always says, do you want more information? You want to clarify? Yeah. She left that on the tagline in the email. And, that's for us, we get our stories because of these brokers things. So where do your stories come from?
I have what I call like my clients for life. So, I mean, I do have like I dabble my toe. I keep my license active because I do have some actual clients. But every class I have ever taught, there are people who wait after and they want to run something by me. And when I was legal counsel for the association, it took me probably like the first month that I was there to let it soak in. You know, people are going to call me. I'm going to be like, I am not your attorney. I cannot give you legal advice. But they're like, I just want to run it by you. Can you just like give it the smell test? And they would run something by me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that is so illegal. Like it is super illegal. Like illegal. Like you should probably go to jail because you said it out loud to someone with a law license. Like that's bad. And it still happens today where they come up and are like, I just want to run this by you. You know, what do you think of this? And I'm like, whoa, like that's bad. And the responses always kill me because you'll have those folks who are like, I thought it sounded not right. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't alone in that. And I'm like, you are not alone. Like that is bad. And then you'll have this other group whose answers, you know, are always these follow-up questions are, how likely is it that I would get caught? And then what would be the worst punishment, like worst case scenario? And so you can tell they're already deciding, like, will the ends justify the means of the situation? Like, is the risk low enough that I'll be caught or I'll have to, you know, go through a lawsuit to justify whatever money I'm going to make from this deal? And so I've always got those people. And then the other part is I feel like this is for the, you know, Matthew, you were like, you know, I'm this struggling wannabe attorney or recovering attorney or however it was you worded it. That was hilarious. Frustrated attorney. People look at like a lawsuit or something that has happened. And if it's not real estate related, they're like, that doesn't have anything to do with me. That has nothing to do with my life. I don't need to pay any attention to that. And that's not how I look at it. So a lot of my stuff that I talk about that I think everybody needs to pay attention to are lawsuits that have nothing to do with real estate, but they're going to change the way the laws that regulate real estate are interpreted by courts or are going to be enforced by the DOJ or the CFPB. So did I do that one? CFPB. Yeah. So I always look at how the other things are going to impact it. And Matthew, you were actually in a class I taught where I was like, Loper Bright is not getting enough attention. And that was a case that dealt with offshore fishermen from like 2 or 3 years ago that overturned what we call the Chevron doctrine. And I'm like, this is huge. Like, you don't even get how huge this is. And everyone in the room is like, this has nothing to do with me. This is a fisherman case. And I'm like, no, this is the court saying that federal agencies don't get to interpret federal law anymore, that it has to be courts doing that interpretation. And that's huge for you when you're regulated by the HUD, enforcing the Fair Housing Act, and you have the CFPB looking at RESPA, and you have the DOJ looking at the Sherman Antitrust Act. All that guidance that's been issued on how we interpret or how we define terms, that's all in play now that we have this 40-year doctrine that's been overturned. This is massive. And so I'm always like, how can I take this lawsuit, and there are a ton that deal with AI and attorneys. I'm like, how can I have people understand that this litigation that involves a hoverboard that was bought at Walmart catching on fire is really going to impact real estate? Like, how can I make that make sense? So, that stuff's just super interesting to me. And so I think some of it, people that are in my class, I think they're like, oh my gosh, she's so excited about this. This is like watching a 10-year-old yell at the pool. Look at me, look at me, look at me. So I also am going to pretend to be excited about this. So that's where it comes from.
I feel like most of our stories do come from either our practice or, like you said, your instruction. In my case, I did spend 6 years as a commissioner in our in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I joke that it was a term that, that was unpleasant. But, what I really mean is it was a tremendous learning experience, in so much so that it was the interpretation, right? Because I'm not an attorney. I just play one on TV. But it's the interpretation of those that are not in our business looking at our license law and completely coming to a different conclusion than what we are doing as regular practice. And I'll say in 90% of those interpretations, I had agreed with board counsel and executive directors and things like that. But there was probably 10% of our decisions that I said to myself, wow, I didn't even see that one coming. And meaning that it was completely interpreted by those people that study the law so differently than what we're currently practicing. And that's what I like to share. And I think you just said that. But, when we're all in a room and we're trying to provide education, a good portion of it is for those people so they can practice better, right? And again, in my case, I made most of the mistakes I teach about. I made them myself. 27 years later, I've made a ton of mistakes. And so, when people are like, oh, you're really critical or you're scaring me, it's like, yeah, I don't want to scare you, but I do kind of want to make you nervous enough to know that I made these mistakes. And if I could make them, so could you. And if I can keep you out of trouble, then that's my goal. But I would also like to be reaching the people not only to improve their own real estate practice, but can you imagine if we all had a higher level of awareness of right and wrong, either legally, ethically, or just how to behave? Because, and I say this, and I will say it probably until my last words, behind every agent or practitioner that has bad, unethical, or illegal behavior, I always say, what is behind that? It's kind of a question in my classes. And then they say, oh, they're broker. And I'm like, yep, you're right. But behind every bad behavior, unethical, or illegal practitioner is what? Is usually a fabulous agent that watched it happen, did nothing to correct it or report it. And we all wonder why we have so many problems, So trying to reach people with your personal stories so that you can put some humor in it. And the folks that are sitting there saying, I would never do this stuff. I did not get out of bed this morning and say, hey, I think I'll do something unethical or illegal, but also reaching them so that when they do see it, they feel comfortable enough to take steps. Because otherwise, if we're a self-policing organization, none of us, our industry isn't going to head in the direction what I'll like it to. So
Yeah.
I just think it's
no one wakes up in the morning and it's like, I think I want to be a felon today. Like, I think that is a great idea or a great plan. But I think when we talk about the folks who come in and are like, I would never do this. Why did they decide this was okay? I think we also have to look at the path because nobody wakes up in the morning and is like, today's the day I'm going to commit mortgage fraud.
I don't know. Have you seen Congress? Like, every day they're like,
maybe there are folks, but there's usually like this like series of steps that got you there, you know, where like you fudged a little on this, nothing happened, you know, so you fudged a little bit more, nobody called you out. So I think it's one of those where there are some folks who just don't know it's wrong. Like they just slept through licensure class. But then you also have those who are like, this is that gray area. And I went to a class and everybody there was laughing about it, so it must not be that bad, you know, kind of like that type of behavior. And so I'm always like, you have to look at like, how long have they been doing this? Like how long, not breaking the law, but like how long have they been in practice? And I always say in practice because that's what it is. It's practice. Like you are like every day you are practicing, you are learning. And if you're not learning, you're doing it wrong. Like you have to be learning about the way the industry is changing and the laws that are regulating it. So.
You know, it's funny. We're talking about like even naming conventions in classes, and you're talking about the people who laugh in class about, you know, getting like buyer agency agreement in Virginia was required in 2012. It was a law in 2012. You have it, and everybody was like, well, "How do you get one signed in 2023 when it became mandatory?" Right? And so we have this 11-year gap where everybody's like, "Yeah, okay, well, I don't do that." And it's always frustrated me because, like, even down to the naming conventions of classes, if you go look at a conference schedule, you're going to say, you know, 5 ways to not lose your license, you know, how not get, you know, how to avoid investigation by whatever.
That's like, literally the name of one of my classes, and you're going to call it out.
I am. No, I'm going to. Because, look, but we do that because that's what gets them in the room. And my question is always, like, you have to do that to get them in the room. Same thing, I made a post about this on Facebook, like the silver bullet way to make business happen and to get clients. It's hard work. That's how you get. There is no silver bullet in this industry or most industries. It's whoever works hardest typically wins, or who's best connected. Mommy and daddy gave the business, whatever. The premise though should not be. You said it earlier. We all do this as instructors. It's like, hey, here's what you need to do to safeguard your license. And I started about 2 or 3 years ago going, here's what you need to do to honor the trust your client gave you and protect the consumer, which is what you're licensed for. If you protect the consumer and if you do the thing that's moral, right, and legal for your client, your license is fine. Like we should start with the premise of just honoring the trust that they're giving us because it's so hard to get, it's so easy to lose. We focus on, and Kimberly, you mentioned this earlier, we focus on like these panels we sit on. You were a commissioner. I've just done professional standards, so not at the level you have, but I read every report that comes out from Arello and everybody else with all these, you know, lawsuits and things because, again, I'm a nerd. And I read this stuff and I go, most of the time, this stuff was done out of ignorance. Very rarely is a nefarious intent, right? The agent, you know, didn't protect their client because they didn't know a better path. Their broker didn't show them, whatever it was. And the stories, you know, the dumb thing agents do, very often I do look at it and go, the broker had an obligation to train, but how did the broker know this stuff was happening? What did the broker put in place as a culture to say, when you're in doubt of what to do next, but the first part of that algorithm should be, how do I honor the trust the client gave me? They're first and foremost. This is most important. And I joked about this before on our, you know, pre-show kind of chatting. You see the agents out here, and I've mentioned this in a lot of classes I taught, you know, out here with, you know, you guys, if you had just gotten a house at a 9% interest rate 20 years ago, here's where you'd be now. Or, you know, out there talking about how much they hate working with their millennial clients because they just are so demanding on time. Are the same agents also sitting there on a beach somewhere going, out here with the hustle, still working while I'm on the beach. Yeah, but you're still posting you're on the beach and your job is so hard. And oh my God, your life is so hard. And I don't think that they understand how that is perceived by consumers.
Yeah.
I don't think and I saw this Facebook post a couple of days ago. This agent actually said on there, I'm out here just trying to protect my license and my clients are going to ruin me. Well, what I heard was, you're too weak to pick the right clients and you're doing something, or your clients are doing something unlawful. And you're out here posting on social media, something that what we're going to call is Exhibit A when it's inevitably goes to court.
Exhibit A.
No. The agents who are on the Facebook, you know, quote unquote mastermind groups with obviously AI generated clickbait and 400 comments talking about specific commission and compensation. So what do you tell brokers? Like, how should brokers be handling this type of behavior that they may not see or know about every day? I have just under 300 agents. I don't know what they're posting every day on social media.
You don't spend your entire morning reading every posting, Matthew. I'm so disappointed. Okay, so first of all, pokey. Lawyer in me is policies and procedures manual. That's huge for me. Do you have one? Look at the, youngest person in your office. Was it written in their lifetime? Okay, because it should have been. And then update it yearly because the law changes, technology changes, maybe how you want to approach it changes. And then a huge part of that, which you said, is the culture. So that's, how do we approach things as a brokerage? And then I have a lot of my kind of clients for life. I talk about this where I'm like, your Monday Minute, which is a really quick video that goes out that's just, hey, just like a quick refresher. If you're going to use, artificial intelligence to write a summary of legislation that's going to impact real estate this year, maybe also read what it wrote and read the legislation and make sure it matches, kind of those little quick, this is, how things work. And then the other part, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier when you were kind of getting to how we build that trust, is for me, when I look at the law, there are two parts of it. Yes, I don't want to get in trouble, but also it exists like for a reason. So I talk a lot about the Americans with Disabilities Act and making sure that your website's compliant. And there will always be people in the room who are like, this is why I don't want to practice real estate. This is one more stupid thing I have to do so that I don't get sued. I don't want to do it. And I'm like, you're missing the point. Like, absolutely missing the point. Having, your text that pops up for somebody that's using a screen reader, that might be an additional step for you. That's additional work that you have to do. But why not look at it as an awesome opportunity that if I have to have the alternative text so the screen reader can read it, why not answer questions in the alternative text before they're asked? So one of my all-time favorite agents ever, who has since retired, when she would walk through a property with her photographer and the photographer would take a picture of the kitchen, she would already be thinking, what is my alternative text that's going to be, the text reader's going to read this for somebody that is visually impaired. But also, if somebody hovers their mouse over the picture, the alternative text is going to pop up. What's that alternative text going to say? So she would answer questions before they were asked. So the screen reader or the text would be like, this is a picture of, that's already in there. And she would put, kitchen, 12 by 10, 2 windows, south facing. Answer the questions before they're asked. So that allows someone to know, okay, this is the light that I'm going to get. This is how this is going to look to me. She would measure the heights of cabinets or of your workspace in the kitchen. So this is how tall this is. Go into the bathroom. Is this the super tall toilet or is this the regular toilet size? Because that photographer is going to take that horrible picture of a toilet that all realtors put that nobody wants to see. But if you have, if they've invested in the super tall toilet, put it out there on the alternative text that this is the super tall toilet that some people put as a priority. Answer the question. So you've followed the law because it works for the screen reader, but you've also made your website one where somebody wants to go because they know that they're going to have the best information provided. And it also feeds the AI machine. So if somebody's doing a search for property and it's really important to them that they have, the really tall countertops and they put that in their search and you have the height of the countertops, you're going to come up in the search. It's awesome. Yeah. It's you're following the law, you're meeting, all of your requirements, but you're also just providing really good customer service, which should be your goal in the first place. So
I think our listeners just got a free class.
I know. That was it.
Right?
That was your takeaway of the day.
A gift with purchase. You know what else I really like that you talk about? And of course we, could talk about it for another 2 hours, but how agents are separating themselves from their brokerage in a lot of their social media. You have a great class on the requirements of the Code of Ethics to represent yourself as your status as a real estate professional, and just bringing up that many agents in some states have a one-click rule, meaning you can click once and find out where that agent works, or like in my state, there is no one-click rule, meaning that if we're looking at your social media post, it should be pretty clear where you work or that you're a real estate agent or whatever your local regulations and requirements are. And, social media obviously gets blamed for a lot of stuff, as it should. However, agents get out there on social media and forget that they're licensed and have a realtor ethical obligation. So, you touch on just so much stuff with such a fresh perspective in a way that we can all understand it. And it's just great.
Do you remember when social media first became popular and you could not go to a convention, or look at an education schedule without having like 5 social media classes? Like, it was the topic, and then it just kind of dropped. Like, it's, and the basics went away. And I always kind of feel like, and I know I don't do the basics anymore because I was like, I've done that, I'm tired of that. But I feel like for a lot of folks, that primer or refresher on, what the law says about how you're using it is still really important. And I know that there are folks who look at their social media presence and they're like, there's a me and a realtor me, and we are different people. And I don't think that doesn't work for me. There's a you, and that's it. And you need to be paying attention to the you at all times.
Yeah, our state, I'm licensed in several states, and so they're each having their little different takes on this. But Virginia just went to they got away with their one-click rule, and now it is every advertisement has to have the broker, not only the broker name, but a way to contact the broker directly. And it can't be a physical address. It has to be the whatever, and it has to be in every single ad. And it was amazing to me how many agents did not understand the difference between advertisement and posting. Like, they just like, these same agents who are like, well, I could say this because I'm not saying this, and I love this. This is how they start off. I'm not saying this as a real estate agent. Here's my feeling about this social issue or political issue or whatever. I'm like, no, the post right after it, if somebody said, I want to buy the house, you would work with them. That whole platform is advertising. But it is just really funny how they don't understand that it's all them. Yeah. It's the totality of them, everything they post and do. And now what's taken over from social media and every other topic at a conference is AI. And I get it. Like, we need it. It's a great tool. It augments us. It can make us better at what we do when it's applied, as you mentioned. And so there's companies now that are partnering with MLSs. You put your photo in, and it goes and automatically tags all the elements. And the agents, like, it is definitely not at the top of their mind that this is good for ADA compliance. They're like, oh, but it's so messy when you look at it. I'm like, the words are hidden after you hit submit. Like, this is for you to make sure it's accurate.
And
they're like, oh my God.
This is your spell check. This is your editing. This is,
that's right.
And for me, the ADA compliance stuff, I look at it from this, perspective. Like, I watch all my videos with closed captioning. I have for as long as I can remember. I found out recently it's because I have like an auditory processing disorder, but I've always done it. And so I get frustrated when agents, are like, I don't want to have to close caption this video. It's so much work. And I'm like, you're missing like a lot of the folks who are in your feed who are looking at that video because you don't have the closed captioning. They're moving right on. So it was worthless for you to post it because you're only getting like 10% of the people who are listening with the sound on. You're missing all the folks who are watching it at night in bed with closed caption on, sound off, because they don't want to wake up their partner. Like, you're missing the folks who are watching it, on the train. So
there are I was shocked when I read a statistic, and of course I don't remember it and I can't quote it, but something that said such a high percentage of people that watch videos with audio off.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's huge. Like, when it's like to the Facebook, it's like over 80% don't listen with the sound on to the video, to like Facebook Lives and the videos. They want the closed captioning. Absolutely. And then there's a whole generation that's coming up, kind of they're not in our offices yet, but they will be soon. And they watch everything with closed captioning on, sound off, because they're listening to music while watching their videos. There's this whole portion of the population that's just an expectation, is I'm able to read it as I listen to something else or as I listen to this. I mean, it's just their brains are wired different because that's how they process information. I have to have the sound on and the closed captioning on in order to process the information. But yeah, it's unreal to me that anybody would look at this and be like, I totally want to use video. I want to jump into technology, but I'm not going to use the part that really markets it, that makes it sink in. Like, I'm going to skip that part. I don't get it. I just don't.
Well, that's why people love your classes.
My general frustration. Yeah. It's just one big, this is what Trista wants the world to be. Yeah.
All right. So let's do this real quickly, because we are going a long time here. What's the dumbest thing each of you have seen an agent do that you're willing to share? Because
oh, there's so many.
Okay, I will go first. So, and it's an old one because it's from when my husband and I moved to the Kansas City area. So 16 years ago, we selected our agent based on, her website and her functionality and everything. But it's happened a few times since then when we've met with people. Oh, I think I want to go. I think I want to retract that. So we moved back to Wichita about 2 years ago, and my husband was like, we're going to interview realtors. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that, but okay. And so we go in and he's kind of narrowed it down to the 3 that he wanted to talk to, that he kind of felt like met our needs. And you could tell 2 of them had not Googled us in advance. They had no idea who we were. It was very much we were just folks who had an appointment that came in. And I'm fine with, tell me about yourself, even if you've already done, your online stalking. That's awesome. But they clearly did not know we're attorneys. They didn't ask us anything about ourselves. And then in the conversation, my husband asked, every single one was like, I keep seeing a lot on the news about how buyer's agents are going to get paid. How does this work now? I mean, he was just very much like how does it work? And the first person was like, you don't worry about it. We'll take care of it after. I'm like, dude. Just preliminary basic research. Who's across from you? If you did just the basic, these are 2 attorneys. You can tell from online we're attorneys. No, that's not going to work. You need to know who's across from you, because first of all, you should never have said that out loud. And as Kimberly said, you shouldn't have allowed that to go on in your brain. But no. And then the agent we did go with is looking at me like, what are you, and she was, it was very much like, you are aware of this, litigation, Trista. This is how I explain it to most people who don't come with your background, and gave my husband the answer that he needed to hear and he needed to understand. But in that moment, I was like, she was trying to decide if we were testers, am I there lining up my next class action lawsuit? But it was such an obvious where she was like, she had developed in her mind, this is what the transaction's going to look like. I am prepared for what they're going to bring to the table. And it threw her for a loop, but in the best possible way, because she was like, okay, this is what I know about them from this part. And now I'm learning the real them, asking this question. And so for me, that's huge. Just know who's in front of you. Have that basic, just that little bit of stalking that you do in advance of going on a Tinder date.
Oh yeah, my Tinder date.
I've been married for 32 years. The only thing Tinder is my ego.
Oh my God. All right. So I'm going to tell you my ridiculous stories.
Yeah.
They are really, a lot of them are escrow related, right? I didn't deposit the check because we weren't sure what the home inspection was going to say. I'm like, oh, good. It's always a good idea for a salesperson to hold escrow, right? And not thinking that that's holding escrow, right? Teams, when teams start acting like brokerages and thinking they have separate, I mean, each state I recognize has different regulations or should around teams, but thinking that a team is the brokerage. I love it when I see I'm the CEO of the so-and-so team. And I'm like, yeah, no, you work for a broker and your broker is your CEO. And your separate identity that you created because your accountant or your attorney told you to is for tax purposes. Please don't confuse real estate license law. So I see a lot of crazy stuff like that. People thinking that because they didn't get paid that they have no responsibilities. Like, oh, well, I'm just helping my friend and I didn't take a fee. So, I didn't do the lead paint disclosure and I didn't do our agency disclosure for our state. I'm like, really? So, where is it in our regulations that says you have to be paid in order to be, it shocks me
I
that
call
people
that
think
being a secret agent. You were a secret
yeah.
agent.
How do you can
that.
turn on and off your real estate license just by whether you get paid or not? I mean, that to me, I just look at people and when I tell stories, sometimes I say, if this is your category, you may want to consider shredding your real estate license and finding another industry because, as nicely as I can say it, this just isn't for you, right? So this should not be a part-time hustle, or if it is, you should be doing your transactions as if it's the most important thing in your business career, because I don't care if you sell one house or a million, it still needs to be a good transaction. But some of the other ones, especially around the, at the time of the class action DOJ stuff, the conversations that ensued about fees, and even back 20 years ago, when at least in our state, buyer agency really was a thing. And I'm like, look, NAR had the ABR class around for over 20 years. The fact that you just decided today to pay attention because we're all being sued is not my fault, and don't blame me for trying to help you today, but you're a little late to this game. Matthew alluded to that in his state. But then somehow agents thinking it's appropriate to have a discussion with what I, as a competitor, am charging my client, and then trying to ask me questions about that and not recognizing that no is a complete sentence. I am not having this discussion with you. So, that falls under some of the stupidest crap I've heard. And then I guess, just to summarize, it's shocking to me the number of agents that will represent their opinions as fact. And things like, I've stood on decks and had agents at open houses say to my own buyer clients, look at this, all this private conservation land. And I'm like, God, that might be wetlands and it's not, conservation. It's actually a privately owned park. Oh, look at, this is a beautiful yard. Let me, follow the rock wall down the property boundaries and then follow the fence. And then it comes down this tree line. I'm like, oh, now you're a damn surveyor. It's like, you've got one license that I'm aware of, and it is not to survey properties or tell us where the property boundaries fall in the ground. And, people do it about the age of systems. They do it about how long the roof is going to last, how, what a nice neighborhood this is. And it's like, just stop. So it's also very shocking to me, the length at which real estate licensees will go way beyond the scope of our license to talk about things that put themselves and their clients at risk. And just that doesn't land as somehow being a real risky behavior. So those are the things that I see on a regular basis. And, but it keeps us employed, right?
It is. And it is one of those things that I always think of it as being almost like a personality trait. Realtors like people. You're people. I'm not. I don't like people. It's why I became an attorney. And you also always want to help. Like if I'm going, you're going to open the door for me. You're going to provide me this information. If I'm like, I love your necklace, you're going to give me the whole life story of how it came to be in your possession. I'm going to get all of that from you. You answer those questions, or you want to be that person. And it's hard because you have to practice saying, I don't know. I don't know. And then you become the I do know, where you can get that information. Like, I am the source of the source. I'm your Rolodex or your phone book or whatever. I can give you that information. And as an attorney, it's drilled into you very early that we don't answer legal questions in our meeting with you the first time. I'm going to go and I'm going to research it. I'm going to do that once so I can bill you because money. But then also I'm going to do that because I want to be right. Like, I want to give you the correct information. And so there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. You can figure out your Miss America if you don't want to say, I don't know. You could be, let me tell you where to get that answered. Whatever you're going to be comfortable with saying. But there's nothing wrong with not being the end-all expert on the property, because you're not supposed to be. You're there to be their source. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's very hard for us in this industry to say I don't know. And for me, that was the most liberating sentence in my career. I don't know, but I'm happy to research it.
Yeah.
I think there's also times where we do know when it's not appropriate to share what we know. And I'll say this is my dumb thing, and this happened about a year ago or so. I coach my clients, like every good agent should, about the value of being quiet when you're in a home, knowing that there's likely to be surveillance equipment in or around the property. And we were walking into a property, and then just that, hey guys, there's cameras here. Remember what I told you? Here's your notepad. Write down the notes. We'll do a debrief when we leave the house, etc. Then we get to the backyard, and I see the telltale signs of an underground storage tank. And in this particular township, you cannot sell a home if there's a storage tank. It must be removed prior to transfer. Like that's just the ordinance. And of course, it's sitting on top of our patio is sitting on top of where it likely the tank is. So I'm giving a whole lecture going back to the 1988 Lust Fund, because it's really fun to think of a bunch of old white men in the 80s going, we're going to call the leaking underground storage tank fund the Lust Fund. That'll go well. So we, I'm giving them the history from 1988 to current and what the county ordinance is to the number, by the way. Like, I'm totally nerding out and showing off. And then I look up and realize I'm right in front of a camera. And as we're walking out, in the back of my mind going, there are going to be multiple offers. My buyer's showing buyer signs. And if the seller watches that video, they're going to think we're troublesome, and I've just ruined it for my clients. As we're getting out to my truck in their car, they looked at me and said, we like it, but it's not going to be for us. We want to see this other house. I'm like, okay, great. I did not turn the ignition switch in my truck until the listing agent was calling me, because that's exactly what happened. The seller was watching me give this little lesson, and the agent, this is his dumb part, was like, I helped her buy that house 2 years ago, and no one told us about it, so we're not required by law to tell anybody else, and now I know, and I got to tell everybody. I'm like, did you ever visit the property? But anyway, so that was, again, even when we know sometimes there's a right place to share it with verification, which is a whole, big thing, especially in the age of AI, is you need to verify what you're getting and verify and give the verification before you, like, be the source of the source. I think is the best way for us to approach this, right? It's okay for you to go, I may know it on top of my head, but let me reinforce it. Let me research it and give you the county or the webpage of the county ordinance so we can figure out how many horses you want to have on the property, whether it's allowed. The other dumb thing and I've seen this a number of times, matter of fact, just recently, is I take very seriously the security of the home, right? You're given a key with access and very specific ability to go into property at certain times and dates. And in this particular case, and it happened again, we have Ring doorbell footage of the agent on speakerphone giving her clients her login so they can go in unaccompanied to a property and use a lockbox. And this has happened more often than you'd think. And Kimberly, I think it's, you've had this happen too. And it's like, how do you, in this day and age, why? You're not protecting the public when you do that, right? Because somebody's going to get shot one day, right? You're going to be, cops sleep in the middle of the night, or in the world we're in now, just somebody who feels like they're, they weren't expecting you and you're a risk and you pop in. And by the way, gave instructions to the clients to lie about if they were approached, to lie and say one of them was the realtor, and gave a name to give and everything. Like totally knew it was wrong. And a lot of this stuff, you know, these agents, they do these kind of things. Like I said, that to me falls in the category of nefarious. You know that's wrong and you did it anyways. But the rest of it is just lack of education. And there's so much to learn. And, you know, Trista, you were talking about your Fisherman Law case, and you and I and Kimberly are super interested in that and see the connection. I see, you know, I do have, like, when I turn off the camera here, all the walls turn around and it's like Beautiful Mind. I have yarn going from one place to another. Why did such and such company buy them? And what are they going to do in 6 months? And it's a little bit nutty and you'll go a little crazy with it. But people hire me because I have knowledge. We're knowledge workers. That's what they hire us for. And recently I shared, and I like this person, so I'm not dissing them if they're listening. But they said, I've been doing this for 30 years, and everything I learned on the job when I needed to know. So I don't bother going to classes where they're going to tell me things I already know. The worst thing you can do is say, let's learn this after the fact. Like this on-the-job training mentality this entire industry has, I think, is at the crux of the dumbest part of what we do. Like there should be obligations to know what you're doing before you walk in the door. So we give each other 60 hours of class or whatever it is to do what Dr. Trista had to go through for her JD. And all of a sudden we can write contracts now. But we never took the time to understand the specificity of language is critical to this. And the structure is critical to this. And why was this here? I think ultimately that's the one thing, if I could fix our industry, it'd be we're going to have much more academic requirements, higher requirements before you get to go lay hands on pen and paper, write a contract.
Well, and here's the mom voice again coming out, where I've heard this repeatedly, where people are like, oh, you know, it's always better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. Cleaning it up after the fact is always going to be harder. And for me as an attorney, you know, to prepare whatever business it is, you know, to help you do your policies and procedures manual, to do the stuff that I do at home in my fuzzy slippers, I am way cheaper than if I have to go into court with you because somebody broke the law. Because if I have to put on Spanx, no, my hourly rate is so high. I call it my Spanx surtax. If I have to do my hair and my makeup and wear a suit and put on heels and look presentable to the public, you're paying me way more. Just be prepared in advance so you don't need me later. Absolutely. Yep.
That's fair. Yep. I think you should put that in your contract. If I have to put on undergarments,
it is.
Then my fee doubles.
It actually is. It's not worded that way. It is a court appearance fee, and it is my Spanx surcharge.
Well, I'll just say, you know, if I have to take off undergarments, my fee goes up. But that's just me.
That's your OnlyFans page.
That is an entirely different business model than mine. And, you know, we listen and we do not judge.
No, just my socks. That's all you're getting.
Oh, my gosh. Have we not had fun today?
All right. Anyways, so, goodness. With that, Trista Curzydlo, look, now I butchered it. I was doing so well. Thank you, Trista, for joining Kimberly and I today and chatting and joking and trying to fix the world as we tend to do. We like to wrap up each episode with one another going through and offering some website, tool, app, or some system that can help people in their business and in their day. I'll start off with mine. This time it's Claude Skills. So of all the AI tools, Claude is my favorite. Their skills is basically you can create a code word and do like / whatever, like I have / Matthew, and that applies my branding to whatever I'm creating. So I don't have that, you know, exhaustive one. And I would suggest either put it in the default instructions for all of your AI models, or create a skill that, in my case, is skill / challenge. And what it tells the AI to do is I do / challenge, and Claude will go, okay. And it says, here's the prompt that's built in. And mine is when you're setting challenge, dear AI, challenge my beliefs and only reinforce my ideas when there is legitimate and widely accepted data, research, or statistics to support my assumption. Provide citations for any and all responses you create for me. So when I'm doing something that I'm going to be published using as an instructor, as a broker, whatever, it calls AI to a much higher standard than if I'm just doing run-of-the-mill work that I don't care about. So that little hack of, creating the skills in Claude, that / and then you create whatever you want, saves a lot of time. Make sure you get the perfect prompt, and it's a really cool little skill. So Kimberly, what's yours?
Oh, stop. You know what? He always comes up with something brilliant, and I come up with not something brilliant. So I rarely have a wonderful real estate tool, but I am going to share with you my latest pickleball tool because I just think I'm an athlete, but I'm really not. So if you do a lot of traveling, like the three of us do for work or for pleasure, anyone, there is an app called Team Reach where you can go out and figure out who's playing in what area and pick. Like yesterday, I am about 110 miles away from my home area, and I found a group that was playing, and it was an open play group, and I jumped in, and it was fabulous. And I think it is, and there's a number of these types of apps. We'll just start with that. I think another one is Playtime Scheduler. So you're out of your home area, you got some time, you want to get a little exercise, you just look up where you are and find a group and jump right in.
I do not want my wife to look at my phone and see Playtime Scheduler for when I'm on travel. Like that has got to be a better name for that app.
There is a pickleball on it, for heaven's sake.
Not making it better, Kimberly. Yeah. You're not helping yourself.
Really, it just got worse. That
concludes my presentation.
New version of the Ashley Madison app. Not that I know what that is. I've heard articles about it, but
I have so much to say about Ashley Madison. That's a whole other, oh my gosh, the legal fallout from that is beautiful.
Okay, but did you go look at the list? Did you go search any of the lists for people you know?
No, why would I?
Oh,
my husband doesn't have the energy to be on that list.
Oh, it wasn't for my wife and I. No, we have tracking systems and everything. If I'm on travel, I went and looked at the list, and there was people that I knew who were paying to be on that list. I'm like, I don't know what's dumber, the fact that you were messing around or the fact that you paid for it. That's so.
Yeah. Or the people that paid the $25 because they trusted the law. They trusted Ashley Madison to take their names off of the list. Like the first class action lawsuit that came out of Ashley Madison were the people who had paid $25 to have their names scrubbed from being Ashley Madison users. And all Ashley Madison did was put them in a special category of the people who had paid to have themselves scrubbed. That was the first class action lawsuit that came out of Ashley Madison, were the folks who sued a cheating website because the cheating website cheated. That's amazing. I mean, that's
right. How to say you're stupid without saying you're stupid.
I was like, that's America, right? America. It was so good.
Yeah. All right, Trista, what's your app?
Mine are, I have 2.5. Can I do 2.5? Okay.
You can do 2.5.
So the first one, nothing's real estate, is Libby, which I think most people are aware of. Mm-hmm. It's your public library on your device. So it's got all your books, your magazines, movies, whatever. I love it. And then the half is when you're using Libby and you're reading the book, I always go into the fonts and I switch to the dyslexia font, which makes it so much easier to read. So you're avoiding eye strain. So great. I don't have dyslexia, thank goodness. But the way the font is created, it grounds the words, so it makes it so much easier to read. Love it.
So it doesn't modify the words. It's just the font is
it's
richer.
Just the font changes. So cool. I mean, it really it's bigger, which obviously love, but all of your words get heavier all of your letters are kind of heavier at the bottom, which grounds them, which is what makes it work so effectively for folks with dyslexia. And it just helps with eye strain. It's amazing. And then the other kind of my last one, is touch grass, is what my kids would say. But it's how we use technology, what I want you to think about, because, Matthew was like, this is how I use Claude. And it's, don't let technology do the fun stuff. And so what I mean by that is when I was a baby attorney, we had to go to this class called Bridging the Gap, and it was how to actually like practice law. And there was this group, they did kind of a panel, and one of the attorneys who's like super well known, like he was kind of the reason I was there. He was so awesome. I just admired every brief he had ever written. I had read like it was a novel. And he said the very first thing that you want to do is become an adjunct professor at a community college or a university, wherever you can get, become an adjunct professor. And then if you have research that you need conducted in advance of like, future class action that you might handle, or, other, tortious stuff that you think might impact your practice, then you can just assign those as research assignments to the kids in your class, and you get free researchers. And I was sitting there and I'm seeing like a lot of heads nodding in the class, and I'm sitting next to someone who turned out to be an even bigger nerd than me. And I'm like, but that's the fun part. Like for me, the research, the understanding, this is the fun part. And so when I look at technology and I go to the classes on how to use AI, so many of the ways that people are using it, I'm like, but that was the fun part for me. And so I want people, when they start looking at how do I use this tool, don't let it do the fun stuff. Like, what is fun for you? Do you like color coding your schedule? Then don't have it do your schedule. Keep doing your color coding. Do you like doing the research? Well, keep doing the research. Don't let it do the fun stuff that makes your practice a good fit for you. For me, that's like fundamental. I like the research more than the talking to the group. So I'm not going to let another tool do my research. I'm not going to have another voice speak for me when it comes to writing. I will have somebody I will use any technology available to check my grammar, because that does not bring me joy. That is not the fun for me. So it has to be, I'm not going to use the tool because everybody else is using it and they love it. I'm going to use the tool that works for me, that makes me more efficient.
Yeah.
Touch grass.
That's great. That's my middle daughter, who's having a litter of children. Touch grass is her absolute favorite concept of the world. Like, these people she's very much a hippie in a modern age at 28 years old. And that's her thing with everybody, is they haven't touched enough grass. That's why they're in a bad mood. That's why they're, so that's a cool app. I'm going to write that down. I'm surprised you didn't have a gravel writing app. There's got to be one. There's got to be a gravel writing trail app. If not, you're welcome for the idea.
Well, Touchgrass is not an app. Touchgrass is a mindset.
Yeah.
You have to go into it with I'm not going to outsource the fun stuff that makes this work for me. I'm not outsourcing the good stuff.
Yeah, that's great. This has been awesome. And a lot longer, more time of yours than we promised we would take. I really appreciate you hanging out with us and laughing with us and chatting with us. This is a great episode. Thank you all. And again, Trista, Kimberly shouted out earlier, but where can we find you?
I do have a website. It does not have my email address. And there's a whole reason why it doesn't have my email address on it that I would go into in great detail. It's if somebody emails me and they're like, hey, this is my legal scenario, then I have to actually set up like a conflicts file for them, even though I never intended on representing them. So that's why I don't put like my work email out into the world. I let my agent handle that, all of that stuff. So yeah, tristac.com, and it's got the link on how to get to my agent.
All right. Very good. And thank you for all of this. Thank you, Dr. Trista. Thank you, Kimberly. See y'all later.
Bye.
The Meet the Moment podcast is a production of the Real Estate Business Institute, an affiliate of the National Association of Realtors. Special thanks to CEO Jenny Scheib and to Dan Shea, our editor and content producer. The views and ideas expressed in this podcast are not necessarily shared or endorsed by REPI. All recommendations made in this episode were merely provided as best practices. The practices of any realtor are subject to the Realtor Code of Ethics, the laws and licensing jurisdiction, broker policies, and competent legal advice. Visit www.rebinstitute.com for more information, resources, education, and upcoming events.